Hi! In this new video series, we're going to explore Unreal Engine. So I'm going to assume most of you are going to be coming from Unity engine. So I'm going to make some kind of transition to try to help you guys if you want to learn Unreal Engine. And at some point, whenever we are a little bit more familiar, we're going to make a game. So I'm going to show you the basics. So we're starting in this video with the tour. So we're just going to do a tour. I'm going to show you the interface, and then we're going to look a little bit about setting up the engine, installing a code editor, tour of the interface, and then a little bit of code just to show you how to do the equivalent of a Debug.Log in Unity. I feel like this is super helpful, and I hope you like it. Let's get started. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to unrealengine.com and we're going to download the Epic Game Launcher. If you already have it, you can skip that part. But if you don't, you just click that download button and it's going to bring you to that page, and the download is going to start automatically. Once it's downloaded, you just install it, and then we're going to go into the Epic Launcher to install the engine. So once the launcher is installed, you're going to go into the Unreal Engine section and then the library section, and you're going to end up on that screen. That screen here is as a couple of interesting sections. The first one is the engine versions. So this is all the version of the engine I have installed. So I have 5.3 and 5.2.1. You can do the plus here and install another one. Right now we're going to work on the 5.3, so I would go ahead and just install this. This is going to take a little bit of a time because the engine is pretty big and you're installing the whole engine. So we're going to continue the tour while it installs. My project are the project that you have created with the engine, and here the Vault has kind of the packages that some packages that you can install and add to your project that you have downloaded from either the store or something like that. I have a lot of them here, but we're not going to use that for the video. Once you have it installed, so you go ahead and wait that it is installed, and whenever it's installed, you can launch it. So here you're going to get that little window. This is where you create a project. So either you open a project or you create one. So as you see here, like the Unreal Engine is used for multiple things. So you can go with games, and there's kind of like these are templates. They are like starting point for you to make a basic game. So in Unity, you would have like you would start a new project, and then you would kind of download those assets. Like the first person starter kit and stuff like that. In here, you start with the project, like they have template pre-made for some types of game that are popular, of some controllers that are popular. So first person, third person, top down, and then virtual reality. So those are pretty useful. But you have things like also for film and live events. So virtual production, architecture, automotive, and then simulation. So this is an engine that is able to do a lot of things, and they exploit it in other industry than games, but we are interested in making games. So here, what you're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select one of those. Since like it's just like a project to kind of see the overall, I'm not going to start with a blank project. I'm going to go with a third person. Third person is one of the classic projects. It allows you to kind of explore the engine, and then we can make, after that, a blank project. Here, the next option you're going to get is Blueprint or C++. So right now, we're going to go with C++. So the point of this is like Blueprint is just going to generate Blueprint. It's not going to generate the C++ class linked with those Blueprint. And with C++, you get kind of both. You have both. You have the possibility to, after that, like take the C++ class and make a Blueprint and then extend it. So since this is mostly for, a video series for programmer, we're going to go with C++. You can leave the target platform, but you can have like mobile if you want to do mobile game, preset if you want to do this is the equivalent of like HDRP versus URP in Unity. We're going to stick to maximum. Starter content is like some basic things that some basic structure, ramp and stuff that they're going to add to the project, so we'll take it. And ray tracing is really if you want to do like high-end graphics and you want to enable ray tracing. For us, like it's not going to be like a big AAA project, so we're just going to go with no ray tracing. So we're going to call this tour of Unreal Engine, and then you can do create. Once the project open, you're going to get this is the editor. So first, we're gonna just look at the different things that you see here and get you kind of familiar with the interface. So here you have your toolbar, which is gonna have plenty of stuff you need. Save. You can open another window for the content browser. You can place some actor, which is kind of your game object menu. Level stuff. Unity level sequence stuff, and you have the most importantly the play button. So here you can just hit play and you can immediately start playing your game. With Shift F1 you get your mouse back, or if you want you can do escape to stop, and then it's going to get you back here. And this is your to launch in a particular platform, but we're not going to use that at the beginning. This is the viewport. It does essentially the same thing that you would expect. You can move your objects. You can use W to have the translation tool, E for rotation, and R for scale. So if you're familiar with 3D software, this is mostly the same, I think. With Blender, at least it's the same. So yeah, you can move around, scale, and rotate. Control Z, undo. If you want to focus on an object, you can press F, and then you're going to focus on this object. So everything that is here is also in the outliner. Outliner is everything that is in your scene, so that you can go and click on something specific if you want to see it. There we go, and then I press F and I have it. Here you're going to see the details panel. The details panel is whatever you click on here, depending on what it is, it's going to give you all the things, the properties you can modify on it. There's little tabs here, so by default it's going to be all, but you could see, like, if I just want to modify is physics property, I can go here, actor property, general, and everything. So you have little tabs, or you have all, where you can just scroll. There's a lot of them, but don't worry about it. We're going to see them in more detail in the next video. If you want to see your assets, you're going to come here in the content drawer. Here you're going to have the content folder. The content folder is kind of the asset folder in Unity. You're going to see like everything that you can put in your game. So let's say that here I want to put a new asset. We added the starter content, so I can go in here and I can go into, let's say, props, and I'm going to add the chair. I'm going to add it here. There we go. So now I have a small chair in my level. I'm going to scale up a little bit. Whoa. Now, one of the things that comes with Unreal is that, I'm not scaling it in the right direction, is the preparing of shader. The first time you put an object in the scene, you're going to get a little bit of it's going to compile the shader. That's for performance reasons. So then you go here, and if you play, then yeah, you have a chair right here that you can, well, there's no use that chair now since it's a static mesh, but you could give it properties and stuff you can do. So yeah, content drawer is for that. So you're going to get all your content here. Output log is where you're going to have the log. This is pretty useful. So, and whenever you debug, like you would do in Unity, you would do the Debug.Log. Here you're going to have a UE log command that you can use, and it can output. One of the great features of this is the filters part. So you can filter the same way in Unity, message a warning error, which is pretty cool. But you have also log categories. So the log categories means, like, if I'm not working on audio and I don't want to see the audio log here, then I can untick it. I can uncheck it, and then you can create your custom log categories, so for your game. So that's cool when you're debugging something that's really specific to your game and you don't want to have like all the logs here. So that's pretty cool. Command here, we're not going to use it right now, but you can do custom commands that helps with either your workflow, or sometimes like when you're in game and you're trying to debug something and you want to see like, oh, I want to spawn some enemies because that's what I'm testing. Then you're going to be able to do in game. It's there's a special key, the tilde key, and then you're going to be able to say spawn monster, spawn monsters, and then put like a number, 190 monster. That's a little bit much, but you know what? If that's what you want to debug, you can do it. So those are commands that you can create, but you can also, like, there's plenty of things that you can have. Like Unreal Engine comes with like a lot of commands. So we're not going to go through all of them, obviously, because we don't need it at the moment. So that's basically the interface. This is mostly what we're going to play with during this video series and while creating our games. Now let's talk a little bit about the code part. So Unreal Engine programming language is C++. So you're going to need an editor that allows you to code in C++. One of them that they use with Unreal Engine for a while now is Visual Studio. This one is more close to Rider in terms of like it's a fully integrated engine, code editor, so you don't have to do much. You just install it, make sure you click the right button when you install it, and it's kind of working out of the box. So you can go into the documentation in programming, scripting, and development setup, and there's a couple of them. So I would recommend Visual Studio because it's like the easiest for beginners. But if you're used to VS Code, they have that also. So they have a page where they show you how to set it up. So since I'm going to be using Rider, I'm not going to go into details on how to set up those, but since not everyone has Rider, you can have either Visual Studio or a VS Code. So both of them are going to work. It's just a matter of setting them up, and then you will be ready. They basically help with this file, which is the when you go into your project, there's a SLN file. So this is mostly what's going to be used to open the solution file and then edit the code. Yeah, so you can choose either one, either Visual Studio or VS Code. Just set it up, and then we'll be ready to start coding. Okay, so now let's take a look at the code. So obviously I'm using Rider, but if you open it in Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code, you're going to get something similar. And you're going to want to find the folder. There's going to be mainly two folder, one for your game and one for the engine, because the solution file linked to the engine. The engine is a separate folder that you install through the launcher. But since it needs to reference all the source code in it, you're going to have it here. And that's pretty cool because, as I said, I probably said it already, but the engine is open source. So that means like when you go into the source folder, you can actually see like all the classes that are composing the engine and actually see the code that it's executing. So we're going to reference it a lot because it helps when you're trying to kind of see what you can do with a class. You can go to the parent class and then see what are the features there, how they interact, what's the default behavior, and maybe you want to override some of it. Right now, we're not going to concentrate here though. We're going to go in our project folder. Out of the box, you get a target file here that we're not going to use much here. Your uProject file is a descriptor file for your game. It's going to get like the engine version, the module. Since Unreal Engine is built in a modular way, it means that even your game is a module. So whenever in the descriptor file in the uProject you have a module here, it expects you in a source folder to have a folder named the same way as your module. So if I go here, I have a tour of Unreal Engine. So it's going to load automatically. The type is runtime. This is not something we're going to care for now, but you have runtime. I think there's editor. There's a couple different things. And when is it loaded? It's the default. It's loaded as same. But if you had a module that needs to be loaded before, you have different loading phase here. Same thing with the plugin. It comes with the default plugin for modeling tools. We're not going to bother with that. Now, there's your config here. So those config file, we're going to see it in more detail as we develop the game, but those are mostly config that are going to be read by the code and the editor. So for the default input, this is the definition of the inputs that you have, and whenever the editor is loading, you can modify that file from the editor by just creating new input binding. You have the default configuration for your game, some configuration for the engine. So you can, most of this you can edit also in the editor. It's just that there's a config file there. So if you want to move your config from a project to another, then there's a way to do it. You have one for the editor too. So the most important one is this one, source tour of Unreal Engine. You're going to see here just a couple files. So since we started with like a template, we have a character here, which is the class that is used by the third person character. So you're going to see here we have the header files. So the way it works in C++, and we're going to get into more detail about it, is you have declaration file, which are your .h files. So they are headers that you use to include definition of classes into other classes. And you have the actual implementation of the functions. So here in the .h, I declare what are my properties and what are my functions. And in the .h, actually say what is the definition of this function. It allows for better compile time. It's the way that C++ linker is linking all the files. It includes only the things that you actually linked. And you don't have to actually have the whole definition of a file to kind of link it if you don't use specific. You're going to see like we're gonna get we're gonna get used to that C++. I know it's a big language, and I might recommend a little bit of course, or I might do like kind of a side series for learning C++ and more in depth. But for now, we're just gonna start with the basics. And you have here a game mode, which is a concept we're gonna see later with the gameplay framework, which is that Unreal Engine comes with a gameplay framework, and this is one of the class. So here it's the default definition of your module. So it just says implement primary game module, and it says a tour of Unreal Engine, which is the name here. Yeah, so that's mostly it for now. What I actually want us to do is I kind of just want us to have a little Debug.Log. So I'm going to show you the syntax to just output a log in your game. Okay, so let's go in here in the tour of Unreal Engine game mode. Every time you want to define a new function or override something, this is where you're going to go. And I kind of want to try to find a function when I can hook that is in the already being called by the engine, and that's going to actually represent kind of the initialization of my game mode. So one thing I usually do is I'm going to go see in the game mode class. So let's go here. And usually they are kind of sorted in a way which is like useful to the life cycle of the object. I usually find that they sort the name of the things pretty cleverly. So you see like the game mode, the first function you're going to see is the init game function, which is perfect because this is kind of what we want to do. So it initializes the game mode's in a game event is called before any other function. So this is kind of where we want to go. We want to put a log like saying, okay, our game is initialized. So when you see this, virtual, you're going to be used probably with C# it exists. This is a method we can actually override. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this. Let's copy the whole thing. Let's go back into our header, and what we can do here is just copy paste it. You can still keep it virtual if you absolutely want, if at some point you want to subclass this. Right now we're not going to do it because I don't need to really override this. And as keyword, you're going to say override, which means I'm overriding the default behavior. This is just a compiler optimization thing. So yeah, we're gonna do here. We're gonna generate this. So I'm gonna do this and generate solution. But basically, you could write it by hand. It's not really hard. You have the return type. This is the name of the class that you put here. It's kind of name spacing in C++. You place this and you say init games belong to this class. Because they could be like in other folders and stuff like that. And at the end, at the top here, you're going to have the game mode included anyway. So he's gonna know that this class exists, and you're going to say I'm in that namespace. And then you put the parameters here. We're not going to go too much into the syntax right now. This is more C++. This is one important line. Whenever you're overriding something, you always want to call super and then the name of the function and pass the parameters. This is because like some of the function in Unreal Engine that you're going to override have a default behavior, but we don't want to erase that behavior. We want to extend it, but you could want to erase it. And in this case, if you really want the parent function to never run, you remove this. But for us, we just want to say, oh, we want to add some stuff to whatever is going on when you initialize the game. But let's see, in fact, what it does inside. If I control click here, I get to this, which is the function itself. So it gets the world, some option string, it goes into instigator, spawn actor, it spawn a game session, it does some init option for the game sessions, and then it does some other stuff here related to the net mode. So if you're not standalone, and it kind of sets you with the login and everything. So okay, that's cool. So we want to keep this. We just want to put something after this. So what we want to put is actually a log. So the way you do a log in Unreal Engine is through things that is in C++. It's called a macro. So a macro is kind of a shortcut that you write, and it's gonna whenever the compiler compiles that code, is gonna replace it by the chunk of code that it's supposed to be. So it's kind of a shortcut. So you can do your own macro, and then in fact, it's the same thing that you would use in something like Excel or something like that. So we're going to do UE log. Okay, it takes 3 parameters mostly. So the first is the category name. So default category to output to the console is temp, log temp. As I said, I showed it in the interface, but you can create those category. So it could be tour of Unreal, but since we haven't created that, it won't compile. So we're going to use some that is already existing, which is log temp, but we'll create in this series some custom log category to debug some specific feature. Now it wants the verbosity. The verbosity is the color actually that it's going to write in. It's not only the color, but for us it's going to mean the color. So I don't know how. I think like there's log is going to be a white text. Usually I usually use warning. It's not that great, but it helps like the text pop whenever you see it. And then it wants text. So there's another macro we're going to use here, which is a macro text. And then we're going to pass it the text that we want to do. So for us, let's say game is initialized. Oops, sorry, initialized. So this is your basic log. We're going to see a little bit more when we need to pass in some parameters, because this can be, this is a string format. So you can add like a %s to say like, I want to put a string here, and then after that, like, put something here. But we're gonna go with the basic right now: UE log, log temp, warning, which is a verbosity, and the text that I want to output in the command line. And then I'm gonna run. If you're in, because I close my editor, but I can run it by just pressing run here. If you're in Visual Studio and you close your editor, you have a start button that allows you to launch the editor back. So let's go and launch that editor. Okay, now that this launched, we can hit the play button. So we are here. In case you want to move around, you can. Don't forget the Shift F1 to get your mouse back, and we can go into the output log. And there it is, log temp, warning, game is initialized. I usually duck this one because it's one that I like to refer to pretty consistently. So yeah, there you go. Our log is here. And whenever we start our game, it's always going to have that line because it's still in the code. And there it is for the tour of the interface of Unreal Engine. So I know this is quite a transition coming from Unity engine and to another engine, Unreal, which has different terms, a different interface, a different language. It's C++ instead of C#. There's going to be a lot to learn, but I feel like if we do it together and we go block by block, I show you the most important things that you need to know to make a game. And we're going to make something pretty basic at the beginning, but it's just going to give you the tools to actually learn how Unreal Engine works. So I feel like if you stick with this, you should be able to make your own game using Unreal Engine. So if you like the video, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.